but I'm rooting for Golden State. They had a great comeback last night, just didn't get quite far enough. So.
The meeting was longer than I think you were expecting, obviously. Were there any surprises, anything that you're going to have to...
Okay, you guys don't have to stand with me. No, thank you. And we'll go in the back and we'll start bundling this stuff up. Thank you. No, I fully expected, well, it was actually the FEMA rebuilding presentation was longer. That was what took all the time. That was a couple hours worth. And I knew it would be long. It was longer than I expected. While this is nothing like Allison, it's nothing like the devastation of Ike, we had a major flooding event, and it impacted hundreds of people. And trying to get that information out to the people who need it is always going to be a challenge, but because of the nature of this disaster, it really is, there's isolated pockets, and we're working really hard to make sure that we identify each individual affected homeowner and get the appropriate information out. There's a lot of great information. There's good dialogue. I'm hoping that we can segment the part of the FEMA's presentation today that directly dealt with, not the FEMA presentation, but the mayor's report that dealt with permitting, because that's where people have most of the questions, and put that back up on the website so that we have the written information, we have that information, and we hope to go door to door in the most affected areas by this weekend, pushing more information out. If the media can help us get this information out, because there's a lot of bad information out there. If you're not in the floodplain and you wouldn't have normally needed a permit, you don't need a permit now. If all you're doing is pulling out dirty carpet and wet furniture and maybe an inch of drywall around the corners of your walls, you don't need to talk to us at all. Just get it done, get it clean, get on down the road. If you're not in the floodplain and you have more damage than that, you may need to pull a permit, but it would be a regular permit, no change. If you are in the floodplain, it's different. And it's really, some of it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, but the short version is just the same thing I said before. If you're just pulling out a little bit of wet carpet and a tiny amount of drywall, you're still not going to need to come talk to us. But anything beyond that, there's extra permits because you're in the floodplain. And if you are more than 50% damage of the value of your property, there's more that has to be done, and you really need a face-to-face meeting, and we will work with you to try to get you back in your home. Our goal is not to have people have to tear down their homes. Our goal is not to have people have to relocate. Our goal is to get everything built back as fast as we can, but we are under some constraints with federal law.
Mayor, can you talk about the significance of the doubled senior tax exemption that was passed today, both when it comes to sort of relief for seniors, but also policy-wise what it says about the revenue cap?
What we have done is equalize our senior citizen property tax exemption with Harris County. It would be now at $160,000 for a home. Most people would recognize, based on the overall property values across the city, that that could still be a relatively modest home for one of our seniors for that exemption. And we think it's fair to be level with the county. That said, we would not have raised it so high without having the revenue cap in place. In order not to have to send checks back to citizens for payments made on taxes, we will be proposing a tax rollback when the rates are set in October, just as we had a slight rollback this last year. And by giving most of the benefit to seniors, we think we're doing the right thing for our citizens, but also falling back within the revenue cap. There was a lot of discussion about the cap today, and the controller and I and some of the council members are adamantly against it, but it is, in order to lift it, we'd have to have a vote of the citizens.
Is it still something you plan to bring before council?
Now that we've gotten to the legislative session, and as I said, there were several things that would require charter amendments that the legislature was considering. Now that we're past the legislative session and we're almost through the budget, we have the month of July to consider any potential charter amendments to go on the ballot this November. And that is one that I know, certainly there are council members who are requesting it, but that is one that we will bring formally up for discussion.
Mayor, there were at least 50 amendments proposed by council members or submitted. Is that a normal amount of, a normal number of amendments in your experience? And
Well, see, I think 0 would be the optimum number of amendments, but this is about what we've had the last few years. In previous years, there might have been 100, more than 100 amendments. So we believe that we have a much more collaborative budget process, and we really work with council members to try to hold down on the amendments. So I think this is about average for the last few years.
what do you think about them, of what you've heard, today?
Most of them, and I think it may have been Councilmember Bradford who said this, that most of these amendments require the expenditure of money and they don't have an offsetting cut. And the budget I presented as balanced is something's going to have to give in order to have more spending. And some of the spending items are big tickets. So I don't know where they're going to get it. I have been fairly, I think, straightforward with council members. I understand that they are desperate to find $6 million to restore their full council member service budgets. And there's not a lot of, every bit of money in the city budget is programmed except unallocated reserve, which we have said that we wanted to preserve. And I have some money that we have told council to set aside for the fact that we are in contract negotiations with fire. And we will resume contract negotiations with municipal employees immediately after that. If council member spends it, my contract negotiations are effectively over, at least for the near term.
Can you describe what's next in the process now, in the budget process?
All the amendments came in today, and we will pass the budget next week. We'll go through, we will present to council a matrix. What we do is we take all the amendments, we combine the ones that are the same, and we try to take a kind of a funnel, that those that have the broad application to the budget, and then funnel it